In 1980, you could fill an entire grocery cart, feed a family of 4 for a week, and spend about $50. Today, that same cart of groceries costs $250 or more. A gallon of milk was $1.20 in 1980. Today, it's $4. A dozen eggs cost 84 cents. Today, they're $5, sometimes 6. A loaf of bread was 50 cents. Today, it's $3.50. And it's not just inflation. If grocery prices had only kept up with normal inflation, that $50 cart from 1980 should cost about $185 today. But it doesn't. It costs $250 or more. That's 35% higher than it should be, even accounting for inflation. If you've been to the grocery store recently and felt like you're hemorrhaging money just to buy basic food, you're not imagining it. Grocery prices have exploded in ways that go far beyond normal inflation. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why this happened, who's profiting from it, and what it means for your wallet. Let's start with some real numbers, because this isn't just a feeling, it's mathematical fact. In 1980, the average American family spent about 13% of their income on food. Today, they spend about 11%. Which sounds better until you realize that's because people are eating cheaper, lower quality food and cutting out fresh produce and meat because they can't afford it. If you tried to buy the same quality and variety of food your parents bought in 1980, you'd be spending 15 to 18% of your income. Let me give you specific examples of how much prices have increased beyond normal inflation. In 1980, ground beef cost about $1.50 per pound. Adjusted for inflation, that should be about $5.50 today. The actual price is $8 to $9 per pound. Chicken breast was 90 cents per pound in 1980, which should be about $3.30 today. It's actually $6 to $7 per pound. Produce is even worse. A pound of tomatoes was 60 cents in 1980, should be about $2.20 today, but it's actually $3.50 to $4. Apples were 50 cents per pound, should be about $1.85, but they're $3 to $4. Lettuce was 40 cents, should be about $1.50, actually costs $2.50 to $3. And don't even get me started on eggs. Eggs have always been one of the cheapest protein sources. In 1980, a dozen eggs cost 84 cents. Adjusted for inflation, they should cost about $3.10 today. For a while in 2023, eggs were hitting $6 to $7 per dozen in some areas. Even now, they're consistently $4.50 to $5.50, which is 40 to 75% higher than they should be. Now here's what makes this so devastating. Your income didn't keep up with these increases. The median household income in 1980 was about $17,600. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $65,000 today. The actual median income is $80,000. So income went up about 23% beyond inflation. But groceries went up 35 to 50% beyond inflation, depending on the item. You're making a little more than your parents did in real terms, but you're paying way more for food. And it's not just that groceries are more expensive. The quality has gone down too. Portions are smaller. Packaging has less in it. A bag of chips that used to be 16 ounces is now 12 ounces for the same price. A box of cereal that used to be 18 ounces is now 14. Companies are using a tactic called shrinkflation, where they reduce the amount of product but keep the price the same or even raise it slightly, hoping you won't notice. So you're paying more for less. So what happened? Why did grocery prices explode beyond normal inflation? There are 5 main reasons, and they all happened at the same time to create this perfect storm of unaffordable food. Reason number 1, corporate consolidation and monopoly power. Here's something most people don't know. A handful of massive corporations control almost the entire food supply in America. 4 companies control 85% of beef processing: Tyson, JBS, Cargill, and National Beef. 3 companies control 70% of pork processing. 4 companies control 54% of chicken processing. The same pattern exists across the entire food industry. A few giant corporations bought up all the smaller companies, and now they have monopoly power. And when you have monopoly power, you can raise prices without worrying about competition. If all the beef comes from 4 companies and they all raise prices at the same time, what are you going to do? Stop eating beef? Buy from a competitor that doesn't exist? You have no choice but to pay whatever they charge. And here's the thing. These companies aren't raising prices because their costs went up. They're raising prices because they can. Tyson Foods reported record profits in 2021 and 2022 while raising chicken prices by 30%. Their costs went up maybe 8 to 10%, but they raised prices 30% and pocketed the difference. That's not inflation. That's price gouging disguised as inflation. The CEOs of these companies literally admitted in investor calls that they were raising prices above their cost increases to boost profit margins. They said the inflation narrative gave them cover to raise prices more than necessary. Consumers expect prices to go up during inflation, so companies took advantage and raised them even higher than their costs justified. Reason number 2, supply chain disruptions used as excuse for permanent price increases. During COVID, there were real supply chain problems. Factories shut down, shipping was delayed, labor shortages were real. And yes, costs went up temporarily. But here's what happened. Companies raised prices to deal with the temporary cost increases, and then when the supply chain problems went away, they never lowered prices back down. Shipping costs from China to the US went up 5 times during COVID. Companies raised prices to cover it. But shipping costs have since come back down to near pre-COVID levels. Did grocery prices come back down? No. Because once companies realized consumers would pay the higher prices, they kept them high. Why would they lower prices if people are still buying? This is classic corporate behavior. Use a crisis to justify price increases and then keep the prices high permanently even after the crisis ends. It's a ratchet effect. Prices go up quickly during a crisis, but they never come back down when the crisis is over. Reason number 3, consolidation in grocery retail. It's not just food producers. The grocery stores themselves are massively consolidated. Walmart controls about 25% of all grocery sales in America. Kroger, which also owns Fred Meyer, Harris Teeter, Ralph's, and a dozen other chains, controls another 10%. Amazon is growing fast through Whole Foods and Amazon Fresh. A few giant companies control most of where you can buy food. And just like with food producers, when grocery retailers have monopoly power, they can raise prices without competition holding them in check. Kroger tried to merge with Albertsons, which would have given them control over 13% of the grocery market and created a duopoly with Walmart. Thankfully, regulators blocked it, but the fact they even tried shows how much consolidation is happening. These grocery chains also use dynamic pricing algorithms similar to what landlords use for rent. They analyze competitor prices, local income levels, and demand patterns to set prices at the maximum level they think consumers will pay. It's not about covering costs, it's about extracting maximum profit. Reason number 4, extreme weather and climate change. This one is real, and it's getting worse. Droughts, floods, heat waves, and extreme weather events are destroying crops and disrupting food production. California produces a huge percentage of America's fruits, vegetables, and nuts, and it's been hit by severe droughts and wildfires. The Midwest, which grows most of our corn, wheat, and soybeans, has seen flooding and unpredictable weather that reduces yield. When crop yields go down, prices go up. That's basic supply and demand. But here's the problem. Even when yields recover, prices don't come back down because of all the other factors we're talking about. Weather creates temporary shortages, but corporations use those shortages to justify permanent price increases. And it's only going to get worse. Climate change is making extreme weather more frequent and more severe. That means more crop failures, more price spikes, and more volatility in food costs. But again, the corporations aren't hurting. Farmers are hurting. Consumers are hurting. But the big food corporations are posting record profits. Reason number 5, labor costs and exploitation. Companies love to blame rising grocery prices on labor costs. We had to raise wages, so we had to raise prices. But let's look at the actual numbers. The average grocery store worker makes about $30,000 to $35,000 a year. That's barely above the poverty line. Warehouse workers, food processing workers, farm workers, they all make low wages with no benefits and terrible working conditions. Yes, wages went up slightly during COVID because nobody wanted to work for $12 an hour in dangerous conditions, but those wage increases were tiny compared to the price increases. If a company raises wages 10% but raises prices 30%, they're not just covering costs, they're massively increasing profit margins at your expense.
So let's talk about who's benefiting from all of this, because it's definitely not you. The big food corporations are making record profits. Tyson Foods had a profit margin of 8% before COVID. During the inflation crisis, their profit margin hit 12%. That's a 50% increase in profitability, while they were telling you they had to raise prices because of costs. Cargill, one of the largest private companies in America, made $6 billion in profit in fiscal year 2021. That was their second highest profit ever. During a pandemic, during a supply chain crisis. While you were struggling to afford groceries, they were having one of their best years ever. Grocery store chains are also winning. Kroger's profits went up 40% from 2020 to 2022. Walmart's grocery sales and profits both hit record levels. Amazon's grocery business, through Whole Foods and Amazon Fresh, is growing rapidly and highly profitable. They're all making more money than ever while telling you they have to raise prices to stay afloat. And don't forget the middlemen. Private equity firms have bought up food distribution companies, agricultural suppliers, and even farmland itself. They're extracting profit at every step of the supply chain. Your food goes through 5 or 6 companies before it reaches your table, and each one is taking a cut and raising prices to maximize their returns. Meanwhile, who's losing? You are. The average American family is now spending about $1,500 more per year on groceries than they were in 2019. That's $1,500 that could have gone to savings, paying off debt, retirement, your kid's college fund, anything that improves your life. Instead, it's going to corporate profits and shareholder returns. Farmers are losing too. Small farmers are getting squeezed from both sides. The companies they buy supplies from charge more, and the companies they sell their crops to pay less. Farm bankruptcies have been increasing. Small farms are being bought up by large agricultural corporations and investment firms. The family farm is dying, replaced by corporate mega farms that prioritize profit over sustainability or quality. And grocery store workers are losing. They're getting screamed at by customers who are angry about prices, but they have no control over prices. They're making poverty wages, getting no benefits, and being told they should be grateful to even have a job. It's exploitation at every level, except the very top. So what does all this mean for you practically? It means you're caught in a system designed to extract as much money from you as possible for one of the most basic human needs, food. You can't not eat. You have to buy groceries. And corporations know this, so they can charge whatever they want, and you'll find a way to pay. And you're probably making sacrifices you shouldn't have to make. You're buying cheaper, lower quality food. You're skipping fresh fruits and vegetables because they're too expensive. You're eating more processed junk food because it's cheaper per calorie, even though it's terrible for your health. You're going to discount stores, buying generic brands, using coupons, doing everything you can to save a few dollars. And even with all of that, you're still spending way more than you should. Your grocery bill keeps going up, even though you're buying less and eating worse. And it's not your fault. This isn't about personal responsibility or budgeting better. This is about a broken system that prioritizes corporate profits over people's ability to afford food. There are some things you can do to fight back on an individual level. Buy in bulk when things are on sale. Shop at discount grocers like Aldi or Lidl. Use cashback apps. Buy frozen vegetables instead of fresh. They're just as nutritious and cheaper. Cook at home instead of eating out. Meal plan to reduce waste. These things help, but they don't solve the systemic problem. The real solutions require systemic change. We need to break up these food monopolies. We need antitrust enforcement that actually works. When 4 companies control 85% of an industry, that's a monopoly and it should be illegal. We need regulations against price gouging. We need transparency in how companies set prices. We need to support small farms and local food systems. We need to hold corporations accountable when they raise prices purely for profit while lying about costs. But none of that will happen without political pressure. And the food lobby is incredibly powerful. These corporations donate millions to politicians on both sides. They hire armies of lobbyists. They fund think tanks that produce propaganda defending monopolies. They control the narrative. So real change is hard. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Grocery prices aren't going to come back down. Once prices go up, they almost never come back down, even when the reasons for the increase disappear. This is called price stickiness, and it's a known economic phenomenon. Prices are sticky upward. They rise quickly and stay high permanently. So what you're paying now for groceries is the new normal, and it probably will keep going up, not because costs keep rising, but because corporations know they can keep raising prices and you'll keep paying because you have to eat. They've learned they can blame inflation, blame supply chains, blame labor costs, and most people will accept it without questioning whether it's actually true. And the worst part is, this is happening across everything, not just groceries. Housing, healthcare, childcare, education, transportation, everything is getting more expensive faster than wages are growing. Groceries are just the most visible because you buy them every week and you see the prices going up in real time. Your parents could afford to feed a family on one income while saving money and living comfortably. You're struggling to feed yourself on two incomes and living paycheck to paycheck. That's not because you're doing something wrong. That's because the economy was restructured to benefit corporations and investors at the expense of workers and consumers. Grocery prices are 35 to 50% higher than they should be if they had only kept up with inflation. The reason isn't just inflation. It's corporate consolidation, monopoly power, price gouging disguised as inflation, and a complete lack of government regulation to protect consumers. A handful of corporations control the entire food supply, and they're using that power to extract maximum profit from you while you struggle to afford basic food. If you felt like your grocery bill keeps climbing even though you're buying less, you're not imagining it. If you've had to make sacrifices, skip meals, eat worse food because that's all you can afford, it's not your fault. The system is designed this way. If this video helped you understand why groceries are so expensive, share it with someone who's dealing with the same struggle. Leave a comment and tell me what's hit you hardest at the grocery store. Is it eggs, meat, produce? What used to be cheap that's now unaffordable? Let's talk about it. And subscribe because we're going to keep exposing the economic forces that are making everyday life unaffordable for working people. I'll see you in the next video.